You told yourself it would only be one video, just something small before sleeping. But somehow, the night disappeared again, and now you're sitting in silence, pretending this endless scrolling is rest, when deep down you already know you're not watching YouTube because you're entertained. You're watching because you don't want to be alone with your own thoughts. At some point, the videos stopped mattering. It wasn't even about learning, laughing, or escaping boredom anymore. You kept consuming because silence started feeling dangerous, because every time the screen went dark, reality slowly crawled back into the room, waiting for you. You wake up tired even after hours online because distraction has never been the same thing as peace. Your body rested in the chair, but your mind spent the whole night running away from questions you were too scared to answer honestly. The moment life slows down, your hand reaches for the screen automatically, not because you consciously decided to watch something, but because your brain has learned that constant noise is easier than facing the emptiness quietly growing inside you. There was a version of you that used to dream loudly, a version that could spend hours building something meaningful without needing constant stimulation every 5 minutes just to survive an ordinary afternoon. You remember that person, don't you? You don't lack information anymore. You already know how to improve your life. The problem is that consuming advice feels dangerously similar to taking action, and somewhere along the way you started confusing inspiration with progress. Maybe that's why you keep watching. Because if you're still researching, still preparing, still trying to figure things out, then you never have to risk failing in real life where nobody can pause the video and start over for you. Sometimes it isn't laziness at all. Sometimes you're just terrified of disappointment, terrified that if you genuinely try your hardest and still fail, then you'll lose the comforting excuse that you could have done more someday. And maybe the videos are helping you avoid something even deeper. Conversations you've delayed, dreams you abandoned quietly, people you stopped replying to because explaining your exhaustion became harder than disappearing slowly. YouTube isn't evil. The platform didn't ruin your life. In fact, some videos probably saved you during your darkest nights. But healing and hiding can look dangerously similar when both involve sitting alone in front of a glowing screen for hours. Every thumbnail promises transformation, a better body, a sharper mind, a perfect morning routine. But after enough consumption, improvement becomes entertainment instead of action, and you slowly forget what genuine effort is supposed to feel like anymore. You once believed watching enough tutorials would eventually turn you into the person you wanted to become. But knowledge without movement slowly transforms into guilt because every unfinished dream starts staring back at you from the corners of your room. Eventually the cycle becomes predictable. You feel overwhelmed, so you distract yourself. Then you feel guilty for wasting time, so you distract yourself even more, just to avoid feeling the guilt you created in the first place. The hardest part is realizing time never paused with you. While you kept waiting to feel motivated enough to start living again, the world quietly continued moving forward without asking whether you were ready or not. And honestly, maybe part of you isn't even searching for content anymore. Maybe you're searching for comfort, familiar voices, familiar routines, something predictable in a life that secretly feels unstable underneath all the scrolling and noise. But eventually there comes a moment where even distraction stops working. The videos keep playing, yet the emptiness still reaches you somehow, because no amount of stimulation can permanently silence a life that feels emotionally disconnected. And in that silence, without autoplay, without algorithms, without another distraction waiting instantly for your attention, you finally hear the thoughts you've been running from for months, maybe even years. Maybe the problem was never YouTube itself. Maybe the real problem is that somewhere along the way, you stopped believing your real life could feel as meaningful, comforting, or exciting as the worlds you escaped into online every day. The strange thing is that reality doesn't immediately become beautiful again the moment you unplug. At first, it feels painfully slow, uncomfortable, quiet. But hidden underneath that discomfort is something you haven't felt in a long time: presence. Not every moment of your life needs to be filled anymore. Not every silence is something to escape from. And maybe healing begins the moment you stop asking what YouTube is doing to you and start asking what you've been trying so hard not to feel. When the noise finally fades, you begin noticing how unfamiliar your own mind has become. You spent so long consuming other people's thoughts that sitting quietly with your own ideas now feels strangely uncomfortable, almost like meeting a forgotten version of yourself again. There was a time when connection came naturally to you, before every awkward silence needed a screen to fill it, before boredom felt unbearable, before your attention became so fragmented that even simple conversations started feeling exhausting to maintain. Your attention span didn't disappear overnight. It was slowly traded away piece by piece every time instant stimulation became easier than staying present with something slow, difficult, or emotionally demanding for more than a few minutes. And maybe that's why this moment feels different. For once, you're not trying to escape the slowness. You're allowing yourself to sit inside it, even if it feels unfamiliar, even if your mind keeps begging for another distraction. Healing rarely arrives as a dramatic breakthrough. Sometimes it begins with embarrassingly small things like cleaning the space you stopped caring about, or realizing you deserve to live in a room that doesn't constantly mirror your exhaustion back at you. You weren't always this disconnected. Somewhere beneath the stress, burnout, and endless scrolling, that curious version of you still exists quietly, waiting for permission to come back into your life again. At first, real life feels painfully uneventful compared to the endless stimulation online, but eventually you notice something strange. Peace was never supposed to feel exciting. Peace feels quiet enough for your nervous system to finally rest. You forgot how meaningful it feels to create something instead of constantly consuming, even if it's imperfect, even if nobody sees it. There's a different kind of fulfillment that only appears when your hands participate in life again. Breaking habits isn't dramatic most of the time. Nobody applauds when you choose presence over distraction for 30 quiet seconds. But these tiny, invisible moments slowly rebuild the attention span, discipline, and self-respect you thought you permanently lost. The world was always moving at this pace. You just forgot how to notice it. Algorithms trained your brain to crave intensity so constantly that ordinary beauty started feeling invisible unless it came with music, edits, and perfect lighting attached to it. And maybe this is what you were avoiding all along: not work, not responsibility, but the uncomfortable truth that underneath all the distraction, you've been emotionally overwhelmed for a very long time without admitting it to yourself clearly. YouTube became a convenient anesthetic because it asked nothing difficult from you. No vulnerability, no risk, no patience, just endless consumption designed perfectly to keep you emotionally occupied without ever truly feeling fulfilled afterward. Maybe recovery starts with small acts of courage like this. Tiny moments where you stop disappearing from your own life. Moments where you choose connection, honesty, and discomfort instead of retreating automatically into another carefully curated digital world. The strangest part about slowing down is realizing how numb you had become. Life was never empty. Your attention was simply too overstimulated to notice subtle moments that once would have made you feel deeply alive inside. You spent years trying to outrun uncomfortable feelings through constant stimulation, but emotions don't disappear when ignored. They wait patiently beneath the noise until your life becomes quiet enough to finally hear what they were trying to tell you. You begin realizing that discipline isn't about becoming a perfect person overnight. Sometimes it's simply creating enough distance between yourself and your impulses so your exhausted mind finally has room to breathe and recover naturally. For the first time in a while, your thoughts don't feel like enemies you need to drown out immediately. They feel human, messy sometimes, painful sometimes, but still worthy of being listened to instead of endlessly silenced. Maybe growing up isn't about eliminating distraction completely. Maybe it's learning to stop using distraction as protection from yourself, because eventually the person you keep avoiding becomes impossible to ignore forever. The temptation to disappear into endless videos still exists. Of course it does. Healing doesn't magically erase old habits, but now you can finally recognize the difference between resting intentionally and running away unconsciously from your own life again. And maybe that's the real question you were avoiding this whole time. Not whether YouTube is good or bad, but what pain, fear, loneliness, or uncertainty keeps pulling your hand back toward the screen every single night when the world finally becomes quiet. For so long you thought exhaustion came from doing too much, but maybe the deeper exhaustion came from constantly avoiding yourself, from carrying emotions you never processed while distracting your mind every waking moment just to avoid slowing down long enough to feel them honestly. Distraction became your default survival strategy because numbness felt safer than uncertainty. Every video, every scroll, every endless recommendation gave you temporary relief from questions you didn't know how to answer about your future, your purpose, and yourself. The hardest truth isn't realizing you wasted time. It's realizing how many moments of your actual life disappeared unnoticed while your attention remained trapped inside other people's stories, routines, opinions, and perfectly edited realities online. But regret doesn't have to destroy you. Sometimes regret simply means there's still a part of you that cares deeply about becoming more alive than you've allowed yourself to be recently, and maybe that feeling still matters more than you realize. Recovery doesn't always look dramatic from the outside. Sometimes it simply looks like caring again, caring enough to open the curtains, caring enough to sleep properly, caring enough to believe your real life deserves attention too. The internet trained you to chase constant stimulation, but healing often happens inside ordinary moments nobody posts online. Small routines, quiet mornings, honest conversations, tiny pieces of reality slowly reconnecting you back to yourself over time. You begin noticing something strange again. Life was never actually empty. Your mind was simply too overstimulated to appreciate slower emotions, subtler beauty, and the peaceful rhythm of ordinary existence unfolding quietly around you every day. And maybe this is what being present actually feels like. Not happiness every second, not perfect peace, just the ability to remain inside your own life without needing constant escape routes every time discomfort appears unexpectedly. Discipline stops feeling like punishment once you understand its real purpose. It isn't about becoming robotic or productive every second. It's about protecting your attention from being consumed by things that quietly disconnect you from yourself over time. The life you were searching for online was never hidden behind another video. It was waiting quietly inside these ordinary moments you kept overlooking because they didn't arrive with dramatic music, fast edits, or instant emotional stimulation attached to them. Nothing outside changed overnight. The room is still the same. The city is still the same. But your relationship with silence changed, and suddenly the emptiness you feared so much no longer feels like something you need to outrun constantly. Maybe healing is simply learning how to stay. Staying present through boredom, staying present through loneliness, staying present long enough for your nervous system to remember that life isn't supposed to feel like constant stimulation all the time. Real connection moves slowly. Real healing moves slowly too. And maybe your mind became addicted to endless content because deep down, patience started feeling unbearable in a world where everything became instantly available within seconds. You were never weak for wanting comfort. You were human. The problem was only that distraction became your primary way of coping until eventually you forgot there were healthier ways to face pain without disappearing from your own life completely. And maybe this is the beginning of becoming present again, not perfect, not fully healed, but awake enough to realize your attention is one of the most valuable things you own, and where you place it slowly shapes your entire existence. The goal was never to destroy technology or escape the internet forever. The goal was learning how to stop using endless content as emotional anesthesia every time reality became uncomfortable, uncertain, lonely, or emotionally demanding to sit with honestly. You begin remembering that real life contains warmth the algorithm could never replicate. Eye contact, shared silence, imperfect conversations, the feeling of being emotionally present with another human being instead of endlessly observing life through a screen. And maybe you finally understand now. YouTube wasn't stealing your life from you. It simply became the safest hiding place for emotions, fears, and uncertainties you didn't know how to process any other way at the time. Your life didn't transform because you suddenly became more motivated than everyone else. It changed because you slowly stopped abandoning yourself every night for temporary distraction and started returning your attention back to reality little by little. So the next time your hand reaches automatically for another video, late at night, maybe pause for just one quiet second and ask yourself honestly, are you truly looking for entertainment? Or are you still trying to escape something inside yourself that desperately wants to be heard?